So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if nothing really changes from now until next year, if Trump isn't, well, I'll just say this: if Trump isn't in jail, then he's likely going to be the candidate, our president next year. Um, but honestly, the elections here in the United States have been really kind of a poop show in the last. I gotta keep my videos like rated G for everybody or E for everyone or whatever the heck, because definitely if you talk about any subject that or say some sort of word and your video is going to get demonetized. So yeah, I can't. I'm not gonna. This is gonna be kid friendly for eternity, but um, Donald Trump. Donald Trump. I don't know if Donald Trump is kid friendly in the first place, but he's probably going to be the Republican nominee and probably win the election. As long as he's not in jail, I'm going to go ahead and say it and call it now. I mean, people think Biden is fantastic. It's really pretty funny. Honestly, unless Sleepy Joe wakes up, poor guy. I mean, he's like 90 years old now. He's it's just funny to me that everybody throws a fit over the presidential election. I mean, honestly, you couldn't pay me enough to do this job. When Barack Obama went into office and came out, his hair was completely gray. That man went into office with not a single gray hair on his head, and he came out, and boy, he was frosty, man. He was frosted. Why would you want to have this job? Like, it's so funny. And I mean, if a woman gets it, by all means, I will vote for a woman if she's competent and I believe she can do the job better. And honestly, between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which were our nominees and are going to be the front runners again, likely. I mean, who else is going to who else is in the contender in the race? If you look at this first, one of the first parts of my video is going to show this candidate. I've never even heard of them, and I think that this is exactly the problem. Is like the news media coverage. Back in 2016, Donald Trump got a ton of free press because the media was just obsessed with his every move. And I really think people vote on what they see. And of course, we're only ever told half the story. It's pretty funny because I've had people in my life that cut me out of and a good part of the reason was because they thought Joe Biden was going to be this fantastic candidate. Yet Joe Biden is inciting the same type of polarity that Donald Trump does, which is not healing for this nation. I mean, there's clips of Joe Biden saying if you're not of a particular race, then you better vote for him, otherwise you're not a particular race. And I mean, that's divisive in and of itself, but obviously when you're blinded to reality and reason, then you're not going to think about anything like that. I mean, the Democratic Party can do no wrong, right? They're perfect. Joe Biden cares about you, etc. ad nauseum. Puke. I really don't want to talk about politics, but Donald Trump is all I'm seeing in the news media right now. During Donald Trump's civil fraud trial in New York, Trump tried to distance himself from past financial statements that imply he tripled the size of his personal penthouse in Trump Tower. Specifically, Trump tried to claim that he had nothing to do with the gross overvaluation of his own property and instead pinned the blame on others within the Trump organization. However, audio recording obtained by Forbes reveals that Trump, back in 2015, recited the false square footage numbers of the penthouse during an interview where he boasted about his assets. This is the entire floor of the Trump Tower, just so you understand. It's like, I'll show you. Now, this wraps around the building, all around the elevators, and I have 3x3. There's 11,000 feet on a floor. So I have 3, so 32,000, and I have the roof. In fact, the total square footage of their apartment was just under 11,000 square foot. Forbes also noted that the recording undercuts Trump's claims made at the trial that he had personally noticed the problem and had ordered his counsel to correct it. Forbes stated that the square footage discrepancy informed Weisselberg and McConney that the apartment was 10,996 square feet in February of 2017. Nonetheless, the Trump organization used the incorrect square footage on a net worth statement dated in mid-March. Forbes then published an article headlined "Donald Trump has been lying about the size of his penthouse" in May 2017. It was only after that story came out that Donald Trump was in the White House. The Trump organization changed its calculation to reflect the square footage of the apartment. A federal appeals court appeared inclined at a hearing on Monday to keep some form of gag order against Donald Trump, preventing him from assailing potential trial witnesses and others in the criminal case related to his efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The court expressed concern the order was too broad and left open possibility of restricting its scope, allowing the former president to criticize prosecutors in the office of the special counsel Jack Smith, who brought the charges. The trial judge, Tanya Chutkin, who is overseeing the federal district court in Washington, entered the order in October that prohibited Trump from making inflammatory statements and social media posts attacking prosecutors, witnesses, and the court staff in the case. It allowed Trump to only criticize in general terms, such as broadly attacking Joe Biden, the Biden administration, or the Justice Department, as bringing politically motivated charges against him, and to criticizing the judge herself. Trump appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, arguing the order is unconstitutional and infringes upon First Amendment rights and protected core political speech as he campaigns to be reelected to presidency next year. The order was paused while he appealed on Monday at the hearing, which lasted more than 2 hours, and judge panel repeatedly suggested they found untenable Trump's position that there could be no prophylactic provision to ensure Trump was restricted from prejudicing the case until after it had taken place. Trump's lawyer argued that the prosecutors had not met their evidentiary obligations. Trump's statements did not directly lead to threats of witnesses, for instance, to get a gag order. The legal standard should be imminent threat for gag orders. The panel interjected that there was a clear pattern with Trump stretching back to the 2020 election period that he named and assailed individuals. They invariably received death threats and harassments from his supporters. The trial judge received a death threat the very next day after Trump's indictment when he posted, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." And on his Truth social media platform, even Trump had not directly witnessed his ire at her. Why does the district court have to wait and see and wait for the feds to come rather than taking reasonable action in advance? The judge asked. Trump's lawyer responded that posts from 3 years ago did not meet the standard required for the gag order. As the Supreme Court has held a heckler's veto, gagging a defendant merely because of fears about how a third party might act. What is complicated in Trump's case is a scant legal precedent to guide the courts in how to balance the constitutional needs of criminal justice and Trump's right to free speech, even as he uses 24 campaign to shield him from legal exposure. A gag order violation is typically treated as a criminal contempt of court, which requires punishment for defying the order. Chutkin could not rule on the sanction herself. It would require prosecutors to take it up as a new charge and seek separate trial. Former President Donald Trump has been placed under enhanced monitoring after Barbara Jones identified $40 million in undisclosed cash transfers disclosed on Wednesday. Jones alerted Judge Arthur Engoron, who is overseeing Trump's civil lawsuit in New York, quote, "The materiality threshold requires defendants provide notice when entities within a trust make transfers outside of the trust with an aggregate value of in excess of $5 million, she wrote. We observed 3 cash transfers exceeding $5 million each, totaling approximately $40 million, including transfer of $29 million to Donald J. Trump, which I have confirmed was used for tax purposes. Another $5.5 million transfer was used to pay sexual assault judgment won against Trump by columnist E. Jean Carroll earlier this year. The civil fraud case was brought by State Attorney General Letitia James, who argues that Trump and his 2 old adult sons systematically lied about the value of Trump's assets for years to manipulate interest rates and tax treatment. And Gorin has already ruled in favor of James on the merits of fraud allegations in summary judgment, and the remainder of the case is primarily about assessing damages. James is seeking hundreds of millions in fines and the dissolution of the Trump organization. In other news, Trump's attorney warned him about committing crimes if he doesn't comply with subpoenas. A lawyer told prosecutors Trump was aware he had to legally comply with a subpoena. Special counsel Jack Smith has accused Trump of hiding classified documents from the FBI. Trump faces 40 criminal counts on allegations he kept government documents after leaving office. Trump was made aware of criminal consequences of lying to the Justice Department and about his handling of classified documents soon after he was subpoenaed. A current lawyer for Trump told prosecutors the former president was told he could face criminal charges if he failed to comply with Jack Smith's subpoena at the Mar-a-Lago documents case, later lied about his cooperation, reported ABC News on Wednesday. Attorney Jennifer Little, who's representing Trump in his election interference case in Fulton, Georgia, told Smith teams of investigators earlier this year that the former president absolutely understood that the warning she gave him about needing to comply with federal prosecutors in the classified documents case. Sources told ABC that Little's warning occurred during a key meeting at Mar-a-Lago just days after Trump was subpoenaed in May 2022. Smith alleged Trump knowingly defied federal subpoena and hid more than 100 classified documents from the FBI and his own attorney. Representatives for Trump did not immediately respond to or comment. Little told prosecutors during the pivotal May 2020 meeting between Trump and his attorneys. She made it clear to the president what he was facing in relation to the documents was more serious than preceding events. For nearly a year after Trump left office in January 2021, the National Archives asked him to return a cache of government documents of which they believed was in his possession. Finally, in January 2022, he returned 15 boxes of records, which include 200 classified documents, prompting a federal probe into the handling of these sensitive records. Later handed over 38 classified documents found in his basement to the FBI, with the certification that Trump and his team had complied with the subpoena. 3 months later, FBI agents searched Mar-a-Lago and uncovered an additional 102 documents marked classified.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.